8.2 million people registered to vote in Georgia. The Republican Secretary of State found 20 instances of non-citizens who were registered, and only 9 had ever attempted to vote. And the majority did so before 2012. This is a solution in search of a problem that does not exist.
That non-citizen voting is an imaginary problem they've created as an excuse to get at voter records and influence elections has been left entirely out of the conversation.
It's not a voter ID bill, like you said. It's a voter purging bill. It's a voter suppression bill. They'll say, "Oh, what's wrong with showing an ID when you go out to vote?" Well, first of all, it's a solution in search of a problem. As you recall, before I came to the Senate, I used to serve as California Secretary of State, so I know a thing or two about election administration, and my former colleagues, not just in California, but across the country. The reports, the audits, the investigations are all clear. Voter fraud is extremely rare. So our current safeguards are working.
Our democracy works best when as many eligible people participate. So yes, we're in the election integrity and security business, but we should be in the business of making it easier for eligible people to register, stay registered, and cast their ballot and have their ballot be counted. And all the data shows that our laws are working. The rate of ineligible people voting is extremely, extremely, extremely rare.
Non-citizen voting is not a real issue. Period. It is already a federal crime for a non-citizen to vote in a federal election. This is not a real problem. This is not impacting outcomes of elections. This is a red herring for this administration to create more terms for voter suppression.
We take this SAFE Act very seriously, and all of it is based on a non-problem, which is the so-called issue of illegal aliens going to the polls and casting a vote.
What's the problem with the Save America Act? Why do Democrats push back on the idea that you have to prove citizenship to vote? What's the problem? Are there just too many illegals in this country voting?
It's not an issue that you have undocumented people in mass numbers voting. You know that, Maria. The data doesn't show that. And the challenge is the way
elections, excuse me one second. Elections have been lost just by 1,000 votes. 500 votes here, 1,000. So when you say, oh, there aren't large numbers of illegals voting, there shouldn't be any illegals voting. It's against the law. Elections have been lost by a couple of votes. So just to say, oh, it's not a lot, that's not an answer, sir.
When the president is pushing nonstop for what he calls the Save America Act, this law that would change American elections, certainly change mail-in voting for many states, what do you think he is actually ultimately trying to get at with that?
Well, originally it was a massive attack on women's right to vote because they were saying a driver's license isn't enough. That just proves that you can drive. It doesn't prove who you are. And if your married name no longer matches the name on your birth certificate, that's not good. Now, half of the people probably can't even find their birth certificate. Then they say, well, just go ahead and use your passport. And a majority of Americans don't have a passport. So they're introducing, again, more chaos into the electoral system for no reason at all because we don't have a problem with illegal aliens voting in the country.
There are so few verifiable acts of any type of illegal voting or some kind of voter fraud that generally does not exist across the U.S. It certainly doesn't exist in California.
My colleagues across the aisle talk a lot about, we need to make it easier to vote but harder to cheat. Right? We got the harder to cheat part down. Every study, every audit, every report, every review shows voter fraud is exceedingly rare. There's zero evidence of the massive voter fraud that Trump and his allies want you to believe. That's fact.
The issue I'm going to take with you, Lawrence, is that, yes, maybe it's partly about the SAVE Act, which is a ridiculous solution to a problem that does not exist. Foreigners do not vote in U.S. elections. That's the facts.
As we heard in the president's address, he will use these bogus claims to push for passage of this anti-democratic, anti-voting Save America Act. It's already illegal for non-citizens to vote in the United States. They face prosecution and jail time for doing it. The Save America Act attempts to solve a problem that does not exist.
In June of 2023, nearly 3 years before I became governor, a serious software error in New Jersey's motor vehicle system led to the improper voter registration of what we believe to be roughly 6,600 people in our state. When New Jerseyans applied for a driver's license or identification at the MVC, they were asked if they wanted to register to vote.
What the hell? And tonight we are learning hundreds of non-citizens in New Jersey were able to cast ballots because of a software glitch. Ryan Nobles joins us now live. And Ryan, the governor came out today and revealed this herself.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. New Jersey's Governor Mikie Sherrill said that a DMV software error led to more than 6,000 non-citizens being registered to vote when they signed up for driver's licenses or identification cards. 400 of those non-citizens actually cast ballots in New Jersey elections between 2023 and 2024.
Oh, well, well, well. Well, well, well. Well, well, well.